When people talk about survival, they usually imagine wilderness settings, dense forests, rugged mountains, or isolated homesteads. But, some of the most impressive survival skills ever developed came not from the woods, but from the streets, rail yards, and alleys of America during the Great Depression. Millions of people lost their homes and were forced to survive in cities that were already crowded, broke, and struggling. Out of that hardship emerged a subculture of resourcefulness that few today truly appreciate: the hobo survival system. These weren't carefree wanderers. They were displaced workers building a network of practical hacks to stay fed, stay warm, stay safe, and stay moving at a time when society had very little to offer. And what makes their methods worth revisiting is that they were designed specifically for urban environments, something modern preppers often overlook. For the first minute here, I want you to understand the weight of these skills. Hobo survival was not guesswork. It wasn't romanticized adventure. These people were up against empty pockets, unfriendly authorities, unpredictable food sources, and the constant threat of violence or exploitation. Yet, out of necessity, they developed strategies that kept them alive for years on the road. Many of these techniques still apply today because cities haven't really changed. The alleys still funnel wind, dumpsters still hide usable materials, and transit networks still dictate movement. If you want a realistic, historically grounded understanding of urban survival, few time periods offer better lessons than the Great Depression. Hobos mastered resource scouting by knowing which overlooked materials were always useful. One of the most important Depression-era skills was the ability to see value in items most people ignored. Hobos were experts at identifying materials that kept them fed or sheltered even when money wasn't an option. Everything from broken crates to scrap cloth to discarded cans held potential. In a time when nothing went to waste, the ability to analyze an environment and quickly evaluate salvageable resources was vital. Today, this mindset translates into practical urban scouting. If you want to adopt this skill, start paying attention to what modern cities discard daily. A single discarded food-grade bucket can become a water container. A busted pallet can be harvested for fuel or makeshift furniture. A dented aluminum can becomes a cup or a cooking vessel. Practicing this doesn't require hardship. Simply walk a route once a week and identify what items could be repurposed. Over time, your brain begins to categorize materials the way Depression-era survivors did. The goal isn't hoarding junk. It's learning to recognize opportunity. They built improvised cooking systems from trash long before the term DIY existed. Many Depression-era camps relied on makeshift stoves built from tin cans, scrap metal, and bricks. These simple stoves required minimal fuel, often wood scraps or even dry paper, and produced enough heat to cook beans or boil water. What made them so effective was their simplicity. They were quick to build, easy to hide, and required nothing but scavenged materials. A modern application is extremely straightforward. If you've never made a hobo stove, try turning a single soup can into a functioning burner. Cut a series of small ventilation openings along the bottom rim, then create a larger feed hole on the side. Inside, pack small sticks or paper, then light it. The airflow design creates a surprisingly steady flame. Although most people today rely on propane or butane, Learning this skill gives you a reliable alternative for emergencies and teaches the same fuel management instincts Depression-era survivors depended on. Hobos relied on navigation networks created through marks, memory, and community knowledge. Before GPS and smartphones, hobos created a system of symbols, simple marks carved or chalked on fences, gateposts, and warehouse corners. These marks told other travellers where to find water, which homes were hostile, where day-old bread might be available, and where a police crackdown was likely. This wasn't graffiti. It was a survival language. While carving marks into public property isn't the modern takeaway, the core principle absolutely is. Today's urban survivalist should develop a strong mental map of a city's essential resources. You should know which places consistently produce cardboard for bedding, where water fountains operate year-round, which stores discard usable food at closing, and which alleys offer sheltered windbreaks. The Depression-era method was about gathering and sharing intelligence, something modern people rarely practice. A practical exercise is to explore your city and build a private notebook of locations you can rely on. Treat it as your personal hobo code. They created layered clothing strategies that maximized warmth without modern gear. Hobos travelled in every season, often with only the clothes on their back. Instead of relying on specialized coats or thermal fabrics, they learned to layer in a way that trapped heat efficiently. Cheap wool, scrap cloth, and newspaper were used as insulation. They inserted paper between shirts, stuffed spare cloth into coat linings, and used rags to reinforce worn shoes. In a modern context, this reminds us that insulation is about trapped air, not expensive materials. If you ever find yourself in cold conditions with limited gear, this knowledge becomes extremely practical. One method is to take spare fabric, even a cotton t-shirt, shred it into strips, and layer it between outer garments to create air pockets. You can also line the inside of a jacket with dry paper to dramatically improve warmth. These improvisations worked because they treated clothing as a system rather than a single garment. Hobos understood the value of forming temporary communities for safety and shared resources. Despite the independent image, hobos rarely travelled completely alone. Camps, often called jungles, were organised spaces shared by travellers who pooled resources, cooked together, and kept watch. This wasn't charity. It was mutual survival. Many dangers in urban environments, threats from criminals, unpredictable authorities, or territorial groups, were easier to manage collectively. The modern takeaway isn't to join a camp, but to relearn the importance of networks. Urban survival improves dramatically when you maintain trusted connections, friends who can store gear, share information, or offer a safe place during emergencies. A useful exercise is to identify 2 or 3 people who share your preparedness mindset and agree on how to support one another in crisis. This mirrors the practical cooperation Depression-era wanderers depended on. Depression-era hobo survival wasn't glamorous, but it was effective because it was built on real hardship, real improvisation, and real resilience. If you want more historically grounded survival insights like this, subscribe to Backyard Wisdom, share this guide, and stay tuned for future episodes that keep the past alive through practical knowledge you can use today.